one of the reasons I had reached out to you in the past is because you were tied to this virtual basement game, and I've gotten a lot of information on it. I'm very excited about it. A lot of people are very excited about it. How
Yeah.
were you approached to be a part of this game?
So the creator, we've been in touch for a very long time, actually, since last year. Shaheem's a big gamer,
Hmm.
and he had been in touch with the creator of Virtual Basement, and we got into a group chat. We were just, he was basically pitching the idea to us. We were giving
Yeah.
him some ideas too, just feedback from experience of playing games and just being in the business itself. And people don't know this, people don't realize this, but Shaheem and I were actually the first people to sign on to this thing.
Oh, wow.
I know it was never really promoted that way, but
Yeah.
yeah, we were the first ones to sign on. And like at the time, I didn't think it was going to be such a huge thing. And like, it's almost like every week there's a talent announcement for it, or like a new advancement in the game. And some of the stuff I've seen from it is like just crazy. And I think people who are kind of tired of the WWE games are so excited for it. So I mean, I'm just like cross my fingers. Like I hope it works out.
Yeah, and when WWE 2K20 or 2K21 it was announced wasn't going to happen, I think a
Right.
lot more eyes went over to Virtual Basement. And I mean, there's a lot of people like I know one, the former Enzo Amore is
Yeah.
all in on this game. Like he's trying to get them to bring in Vince Russo to write storylines, and
Yeah.
he was recruiting people to be a part of the game, basically saying like this your drawing power is tested here because I guess basically the amount of times you're downloaded depends on how much you make and all that. It seems like a fresh approach to a video game world that hasn't been that fresh over the last few years.
Right. And I think including independent talent, and like you said, it forces it forces you to test your drawing power.
Yeah.
Um, I think that the model is pretty cool. It's way different than anything I've ever seen before, and it should be very interesting because I'm like looking at the roster. How many guys are signed onto this thing? It's
Yeah.
like, I feel like there's 200 wrestlers already, plus
Yeah,
plus a women's roster they're working on right now.
yeah. I put together the roster for it a few days ago,
Yeah,
like for our website. I was like, man, that person's in it. That person's
yeah.
in it. That person's in it.
I'm not really sure who's going to be on the core roster of it and who's going
Yeah,
to be DNC. Um, but
I know they've already
regardless,
announced like EC3, Ken Shamrock. A
yeah,
lot of people like that. Kylie Ray, which I mean, I don't know how the Impact thing is going to affect some of these people because I know Impact asked them to pull out. Did ROH have any reaction to this that you knew of?
not that I know of. I see. This is the thing. When I signed on to this, I was no longer with ROH,
Okay.
and I felt like this was a good opportunity for myself. I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen with the Ring of Honor, but let me sign on before I
Yeah.
sign with ROH. So I knew immediately. I was like, immediately that I wanted to be part of it. And I think a lot of the guys in the locker room were pretty excited for it too. And I remember it was actually that weekend in Nashville where you hear a lot of people in the locker room talking about it, and there was a lot of excitement about it. And I'm going around with PJ Black, basically pitching this thing around to people because I'm pretty close with the creator. We're going around like talking to different guys in the locker room about it, trying to get them basically butter them up
Of
because
course. Yeah.
yeah. So I've been working pretty closly with Ashton, the guy who's
That's awesome.
the man behind the whole thing, just to try to send out feelers where I can. I'm not Enzo. I don't have that kind of I don't have those connections yet. But like the people I do know, I've been trying to talk to them and get them involved.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the immediate future of wrestling gaming because there's a couple good prospects out there, and I'm really excited. And the world is really excited for Virtual Basement. I can tell you that whenever we do an article on it or anything, it always does really good traffic. It always gets a lot of attention. So to see that people care about it, even though it doesn't have that WWE label, even though it doesn't have an AEW label, that makes me very happy. That makes me
Yeah.
optimistic because let's be real, today people can create almost anything, and I think that's the method that's being tested. They're hand creating these wrestlers. They're not doing scans.
Yeah, it's crazy. When I first got the renders for me and Shaheem,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, how did you do this? First of all, this might sound a little ridiculous. He sent me a nude one. I was like, how did you figure that out? Like, I was like, that looks just like my butt. Like, how did you get like he did such a good job of like gathering pictures from everything I've posted on social media to
Yeah.
like put together. It's crazy the amount of work they're doing for each individual model.
That's the thing. I look at the stuff that fans make on WWE Community
Yeah,
Creations, and I look at that and I'm like, well, why do they need to do face scanning at this point if people can just create it like that and it
right.
looks smoother and it looks better than what. And I'm not taking a shot at the developers or anything. I'm just saying there are some really talented people. And I know Virtual Basement doesn't have thousands of people around the world to create this stuff, so it makes it even more impressive what they're doing. I'm very excited for that, and hopefully we can talk more about that in the future. But it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, especially because they want to put it on next gen consoles. Like that's
Yeah,
huge too. Because
yeah,
you hear this and you think, okay, it's just some independent game. It might be on PC or like mobile, might be some little mobile game.
yeah.
And they say that no, this is going to be next gen consoles. And like, all right, they're serious.
And
They're
I
serious.
believe it. I mean, look at the WrestleFest sequel that's coming out, the Retromania arcade game. It's landing on PS4, Xbox, and Switch. So I
Yeah,
think it's there. The opportunity's there. The attention is there. Fire Pro Wrestling was a runaway success. But as much as I am excited for Retromania and I liked Fire Pro, those aren't true 3D alternatives right now. And some people want that 3D alternative, and this is that, in my opinion. Are you into gaming? Were you ever a wrestling gamer when you were younger?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a kid, huge, and I mean, I from that time frame, from like the '90s and early 2000s and everything, I probably know among the most about sort of wrestling video games that you can. Nowadays, I haven't had all that much time to play video games, but during this pandemic, it's definitely fired back up, and I'm
Yeah.
getting back into it. Um, yeah, so for sure, yeah. But I think you didn't ask me, but if I had to say, just to
I was
say,
I was I know what you're about to say, and I was about to ask you. So
well, I'm just going to say the best wrestling video game of all time was Giant Graham 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast.
I've never
So
heard of that.
it's very good. It's All Japan Pro Wrestling
Okay.
around the time when Noah was first starting to form, but still had the full
That
roster of
Yeah,
all
that
the
was
guys.
AJPW3 overseas. Yeah, okay. I'm
Yeah,
familiar
yeah.
with that.
Giant Graham 2000 was it's hard to get into, but if you're somebody who likes wrestling for like that sort of style of wrestling, like the All Japan, like Kings Road style, the counters and the fire ups and all of that, they incorporated all of that into a video game engine, I think, perfectly. And so it's very nice because I'm just going to nerd out here, but like the problem with wrestling video games is that like everybody likes wrestling for like good matches, right? A lot of the time, like you want to see like an epic contest with like a great like all these like peaks and valleys and all that stuff. And but the other thing is like in video games, you're usually playing to win, so you don't those two don't always mix up well, where it's but like in Giant Graham, they found a way to keep like a competitive arcade game with a like a engine that like makes good wrestling happen. So definitely check that one out if you can find it.
So were you more of like a simulation gamer or an arcade gamer? Because there are some people, like a lot of football players, they don't want to play NFL Blitz. They want to play Madden type of thing. For me, I was a little bit of both. Like I would love to fire up Saturday Night Slam Masters, and I would love like WCW Revenge. Either one was good with me.
Yeah, I agree. But I think definitely as like a big like wrestling nerd who like was really into like the epic matches, I think the simulation stuff sort of more appealed to me. The Fire Pro Wrestlings and the Giant Grams. Even though Giant Grams is very arcadey, but yeah, for sure.
Is that a goal of yours to end up in a video game or something at this stage of your career? Like, it's a nice perk, but no big deal.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly a goal. It's tough to like have those goals at a certain point because before you know it, like things are just sort of like happening that like you didn't even like take the time to really say like, oh, I wish that would happen. It's just like all of a sudden like these things in your career are happening. And you're like, oh wow, like that just happened. I should have looked at that as like this like big goal. So maybe it's something that'll happen in hindsight. If one day I happen to end up in a video game, maybe it'll hit me like, oh my god, this is like insane. It's one of those things that you saw as like a kid, and then like eventually you're like living it. It's just sort of insane. So yeah, it's definitely a goal, and I think it's also really it's amazing and flattering and very cool when anybody like creates you in a video game. I think is like one of the like neatest things like about being a wrestler is just like it's so crazy to see if anybody like goes through the trouble of like creating you in their video game. It's super awesome.
And the way things are, like, I mean, quite frankly, some of the people that make these characters on their own make them more accurate than some of the people that get face scanned in, which is wild to me to even think that that's possible because their actual face got scanned in, and somebody's sitting at home morphing your nose, your cheeks, all that, and they make it look even better. That's wild, because it was not like that when you and I were both growing up.
Right. No, yeah, it's super impressive and amazing to see. So it's almost like you already have been in a video game when that happened, because like you said, sometimes it looks better than the guys that were actually like modeled into the game. So
were you much of a wrestling video gamer growing up?
Absolutely. But not to like a hardcore extent. I definitely had the No Mercy. I definitely had all of the SmackDown games for PlayStation. And then I played some of the Royal Rumble for Dreamcast or whatever. But dude, I loved wrestling games when I was younger. Every Christmas, that's what I would look forward to, just staying up and playing all night. SmackDown, just bring it. I stayed up, no lie, from like 12 a.m. to about 8 a.m. just playing that all night long, because we used to do Presidents at midnight.
Yes. So
it brings back so many great memories. I actually brought my PlayStation 2 here to not do a tournament per se, but try to play with some of the guys here and see where they're at, see where their level is, see how much they love wrestling.
Nice. And with AEW being the size of the company it is, it's inevitable eventually a video game's going to happen. How does that feel, knowing that you're probably going to end up in a video game?
That, to me, it's the same feeling I have about like getting an action figure. I think I have to see that before I can even let any type of feeling kick in, because I've seen people create like the creative wrestlers for me online, and those are really cool in itself. But to have like an official game, like a character model on a video game, dude, I just even thinking, I was like, I don't even know. That's just a very lackadaisical like feeling. I said, wow. I have to see it first, but I really think it'd be cool to have regardless.
Actually the only one, and it was weird. It's the, things get better, but do they really? The only game that I actually recall doing that for was the ECW video game.
The Acclaim ones from
Acclaim one.
Yeah.
They brought us to the Acclaim offices in New York somewhere, and every sound from that video game we had to record, all the grunting, the groaning, the ow, as well as 3 or 4 lines of taunting that our character would have done. But I don't recall ever doing any of that in WWE. I do remember there was a week, and unfortunately it was just after we had all been fired from the invasion, and I did the segment where I was, mopping floors at WWE New York, the restaurant, hoping to make my way back after being fired. And all of the toy companies were doing, I guess probably the Christmas launch or something. So there's all these new toys coming out. So they're all there too. And I'm assuming none of the people knew wrestling, so they just watched the episode the week before they showed up. So literally every piece of merchandise and toy, they had me doing, janitor stuff as if that was my gimmick. And there was like, a lot of voice stuff for sound effects for different things, or a microphone that you could interview people. And they just wanted me to record all these lines about mopping floors. I'm just like, oh. But yeah, other than that, for toys and the ECW video games, the only time I've done voice work, so to speak. But again, I've been doing podcasts, non-garden related, for quite a while, so it wasn't a big stretch.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I kind of realized you left in 04, and many of the WWE games were text-based with the terminology before then, like, because they would have like music overlay and stuff. I'm sure you didn't play many of them, but
no,
I also do vividly remember, like, when you would throw a strike and you'd hit Balls Mahoney, he'd like go, oof, like that on the ECW games as well.
And we made those recordings.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, you're sitting in this tiny little room all by yourself, and they're like, you get the headset on. And they're like, okay, grunt. And it's like, ugh. It's like, all right, pretend you got hit. You go, oh. It's like, you just feel like an idiot. So actually being in a studio with Brent doing lines and letting him hit me was easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you had him there, it would have been a lot more natural, because he could have just got the job done for you.
Yep.
Was there any to kind of mention the video game again? Was there any other work you had to do for those? Like, did you have to do any motion capture? I mean, I feel like this was before that time.
We didn't do motion capture, but we did, and it was absurd. They came to we did a show in White Plains, and they were going to film the commercial. And we get there, and they've got this set up in the ring, and had to have been about a 4-inch thick chunk of plexiglass in the middle of the ring on blocks with a camera underneath it. And they wanted all of us to do like wrestling moves on it. So they wanted a guy to jump off the top rope and splash the camera so you could see it and we're like, we can't land on that. Like, why not? I'm like, that's 4 inches thick plexiglass. It's like landing on concrete. And they're like, well, can't you just splash that? We're like, no. So they eventually managed to put some, the gym mats that would be on the floor in New York around it, just enough so that the camera didn't see it. And a couple guys were willing to do a couple of bumps on that, but it was not good. So yeah, that's why I much prefer the animated series, because you don't have to do your own stunts in an animated series.
You're a busy woman. Have you ever been much of a video gamer?
Oh yes. I used to play World of Warcraft.
Really?
And yeah.
I don't think a lot of people would have expected that.
No, I guess not. So Wild Bangarang is licensed with WWE, and they make all the superstars leggings. Well, before they got that license with like Marvel and WWE, I hit them up and was like, hey, I can be a brand ambassador for you. And they even made me my own signature Amber Nova Wild Bangarang leggings, which they're based out of London too, which was cool. Yeah. I got to meet them when I wrestled there. But prior, I was like, I'm a huge fan of World of Warcraft, Pink Power Rangers. I just posted like for Power Rangers Day the other week, my Pink Power Rangers leggings with Wild Bangarang. And then I made the top and the gear myself, the gloves. Everybody's like, that's not the right helmet, right? And I'm like, yes, it's the only thing I found at Goodwill, and I spray painted it pink. It was good enough. I couldn't find the helmet. But it looks really good for spray painting that thing on my, right?
It did.
So, yeah, gamer for sure. That's how I got with the Wild Bangarang and the custom leggings, and they have like World of Warcraft. They have all kinds of fun ones. I big into Nintendo. Let's see, James Bond, GoldenEye.
Oh yeah.
I would always creep in GoldenEye. I don't know, every Nintendo 64 game you can imagine. Original Nintendo, Duck Hunt. My dad had arcade machines in our house growing up. We had
cool.
Mortal Kombat. We had Street Fighter, Space Invaders. We would go through different arcade machines. So yeah, definitely gamer family for sure.
Were there ever any wrestling games that you liked back then?
A couple, but I was more into like other games. Ninja Turtles, I'd play that.
Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo was my favorite.
What's funny is like I watched wrestling, but I didn't play a ton of wrestling games. But I still enjoyed it.
We've seen a couple of like independent-based wrestling games come aboard, like Virtual Basement and Retromania. Have they reached out to you, or is that something that you would like to do, be in a video game?
Technically, I guess I already have been. I have had a few fans create me in the W2K, right? And I don't know how they do it. They really get the gear, my name on the gear. They get everything like identical, and I'm like, whoa, this is sweet. So I feel like I've already been created in like the W2K and all the games. And they'll tag me in it, and I really love it. It's so kick-ass. So, yeah, I guess I already have been.
That's exactly what Hot Sauce Tracy Williams said to me. And he was like, man, he's like, I feel like I've already been in one because they make it so well. And one of those new games that I mentioned, they're creating everything by hand because they see how well people can do it. Like, they're not even bothering with face scans anymore. It's amazing how well people get at that and how adept they are.
Well, I mean,
thank you.
You know where that came from. I mean, you know that you're associated pretty directly with the backyard wrestling game.
Yeah, it for a long time there was basically part of my identity when it came to wrestling, and in some ways I think it was a little bit of a detriment to us that we had to, in some ways, work harder than other guys and also try to prove ourselves to be true professionals, because that stigma stuck for a while, especially with some of the veteran guys that were really angry about the backyard wrestling craze. But for, young kids that didn't even know that there was a wrestling school within hundreds of miles, it's like, what else do you do when you love pro wrestling besides go in your backyard and wrestle? And I always said it to the veteran guys that would be angry about the fact that we had backyard wrestled. The moment I knew that there was a school in Cleveland, which I never knew about, the moment I knew, I went and I got trained.
You want to cut a promo on Kevin Gill? I told him I was going to have you bury him. I don't know what you could bury him.
I was going to say it's going to be hard.
He's a nice dude.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some great times with Kevin. You know, him and I got to go to Japan to promote that backyard wrestling video game together. I remember, one of the best memories with Kevin Gill. We were in Japan, and the company that brought us over, IDOS, was paying for everything. So it's good because Japan is an expensive city. And we go into a karaoke bar, and next thing I know, it's us, probably 10 Japanese businessmen. All these girls that were wearing prom dresses for some reason, and we were singing Beastie Boys' "Fight for Your Right to Party."
Nice.
And it was him and I trading off on the microphone, and we just had some incredible times over there. So I even if I want to, I don't even know if I can fake anger at Kevin Gill.
I was told maybe there was an interesting process in filming or photographing the cover of that game.
So, so the cover, if anybody has seen it, is me laying on a table, and I had a lot more hair then, and I'm kind of prone, and Matt is coming off of a roof on top of me through a folding table. And when we got there, the house that's in the background does not do it justice, the picture. It is much higher than it looks. I would say it's probably a 12 to 14-foot house. And they wanted me to lay there without moving while Matt jumped off onto me. And it's physically impossible as a human being not to flinch and try to protect yourself when somebody's jumping off. But they wanted me to stay perfectly prone as he lands on me. I'm like, I'm going to break every rib that I have. So we actually took the picture a few times with the actual bump.
Oh, no.
And it was kicking my ass. It was like California. We were in the middle of the desert somewhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even grass. It was like underneath me was just like cement rock kind of thing. So we did it a few times where we actually took the bump through the table, and I was getting so jacked up, and they wanted to do it again because I didn't stay still enough during the picture. I was like, it's impossible. You'd have to knock me unconscious to get me to stay there prone. So somebody finally had the idea to superimpose me. I laid on the table. They took a million pictures, and then they put Matt on a trampoline and had him jump up and down a few times.
Oh, my God.
And just, kind of look like a flying squirrel. And then they took the two pictures and put them together, and I was like, man, I wish they would have done that from the beginning instead of me.
I would have never known. I mean, it makes a lot more sense that way, too.
Yeah, there's some pictures of me actually going to a table probably with the worst look on my face because, it was brutal.
Would you say that game got you more bookings after it released?
It helped. And, one of the nice things for the game is I know IDOS did a really nice job of setting up tour for it just to promote it. Like, I went over to Japan with Madman Pondo and Kevin Gill, and all we did was press conferences that turned into brawls. So I didn't even have to have a match, and it paid pretty well. So we would go over to Japan, and we'd start a press conference. Pondo would start doing his Pondo thing, just going nuts, and I would just follow suit. And Abdullah Kobayashi, I would come out and get mad because we were disrespecting Big Japan Wrestling, I think.
Yeah.
And it would just turn into a brawl. So we did it at TV shows. We did it in office buildings. We did it at their dojo. So it was really kind of fun because it was no match. You didn't have to remember anything. It was just, let's just brawl. And Pondo would bring out the stop sign and start whacking all the guys at the dojo. But yeah, it was fun because we did that, and then we got to go to England, and Matt and I, M-Dog, put on a match in London, England. And they took wonderful care of us over there, put us up, took us to every site you can imagine, wonderful food. Loved our time in England. The promotional stuff for the game was the highlight for me because I got to see, places that I had not seen yet. And it was just such a cool opportunity. And, it was like a paid vacation.
And you can see me on Twitch.
Nice.
Twitch.tv/Killer Kelly. I love playing horror games and just being scared shitless. It's amazing. Really, really cool. And watch serial killer documentaries. I love doing that.
Oh, me too. Me and my wife, that's we live on investigation discovery.
I love it.
One of our podcast co-hosts, when she applied to I always do my due diligence, and I'm like, okay, is this person going to be good on screen? I found that she played a part in an investigation discovery. Yeah, she played a girl that got murdered, unfortunately.
That's cool.
But I was like, oh, she's going to be great. She's going to be awesome.
That's amazing.
Before we go, were you ever much into wrestling video games? Was that ever your thing, or did you kind of start with as you mentioned, the horror genre?
I started with actually I started with Bugs Bunny.
Which one?
On-
Super Nintendo?
No, at PlayStation 1.
Really?
Yeah, I started with that one, and I occasionally played like on the Sega Drive. Sega Drive is
Sega Mega
Yeah.
Drive, yeah.
Sega Mega Drive. Playing like was it Mortal Kombat or Tekken? One
It would have been
one or
Mortal
the
Kombat,
other.
but yeah, Tekken
Yeah.
Tekken eventually was in arcades and PlayStation.
Ah, yeah. So I played that with my big brother and my big sister, and I was obsessed with that as well. And then, of course, wrestling games came on, and I played Raw. I feel like it's the 98 game. It was in 1998. I played it on the computer. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And it was like exactly at the same time that I started watching wrestling. So it was like super cool. And then I had all the SmackDown versus Raw. All of them. Obsessed. And then of course I'm a horror junkie. I love everything horror, as you can see.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I love Freddy Krueger. And so yeah, completely obsessed. Then I started playing games. I was like, oh, this is my jam. I should start a Twitch soon so people can see me getting scared shitless.
You and Brian in Retromania. I'm a big WrestleFest fan.
Yes.
Explain to me like how, I mean, obviously this seems right up your alley, but the process of making that happen.
Literally the day we were released, somebody from Retromania reached out. Might have been the day after. It was either the day of or the day after. And who didn't love WrestleFest, right? Like an iconic piece of, I think, video game history, but definitely of my childhood. So to be in the official sequel, I just had to do it. Sign me up, baby. Where do I sign? Where do I sign?
I'm very excited for that game. Like, I was bummed when they pushed it back, but I'd rather them release a game that's going to be complete and done and awesome. But when you see these video games, were you a big video game guy growing up?
I was a huge video game guy growing up. I think around N64, that's where I kind of stopped because things became way too hard for me. But even now, the other day, I was playing like Revenge on N64. So like those games, No Mercy, WrestleMania 2000. But then once it starts getting to like Xbox, like PlayStation 2, it just becomes too difficult for me and too time consuming where you could, if you play No Mercy, you can just do a Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It can have some fun, but then you got to do the career mode. I was like, oh my God, this is too much.
I don't know how no indie company has picked up like Hanzo Man and Aki Man from the Revenge games. like ran them on there. So when you get to WWE and you're in a video game, what are you excited most for? To be in a video game or that check?
Listen, okay, this is another funny story. So the first year we were downloadable, which whatever, I'll take it. Very, very excited. This was a dream come true to be, you want to have a t-shirt, you want to be in a video game, you want to have an action figure. That first royalty check, I'll never forget. My dad called me and told me what it was, and I was in my hotel room and I dropped to the bed. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. And then the years after that drastically went down and down and down and down. I don't know exactly what happened, but still very cool. Like the fact that we get paid to be in a video game. It's when you think about it like that, it's like I get to be in a video game and I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
One of the wrestlers told me what they're going to make to be in that Battlegrounds game, which isn't going to sell a one. And I was still like, what? That much? And they're like, oh, and that's down from previous years, like way down from previous years. Is
that the game with the alligator?
Oh yeah.
I
fully believe they were going to have Braun get eaten by an alligator in that swamp just to promote the game. I'm always interested to ask people, especially during quarantine, after quarantine, are you much of a video gamer?
Well, I've been like a gunkle, I had two god babies running around here. They're going to be 7 years old, September 13th. So since this whole pandemic, I've been managing my time with them, doing my sponsorships and being blessed to do New Japan.
Yeah. So do you remember the first time you were in a video game? Were you like, man, this is cool. Like this is it.
I think 2013, maybe 2013 was my first video game. 13,
2K. I remember it was
14,
2K14 was the first one you were in, so that would have been 2013 would have been the year.
Oh, what? Okay, what year did I say?
2013, but they like the year before they'll put out 2K14. That way it stays relevant a few more months. Yeah.
See, you're the professional. You're the professional. You know your information. You know it.
So did you ever have to like go in and do like voiceover work or motion capture or anything like that for any of those?
No, I would have loved to have done that, but I know a lot of that stuff was saved for, I guess, the indie guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was never involved in that. I mean, I've gotten myself scanned, which is cool, but yeah, I never had to get hooked up to those things and do all the moves and stuff like that. I would love to do that now. I'm not opposed to that at all.
And also, I've always heard the checks don't hurt either.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I always say, with the wrestling, if I would have done this for the money, I would have complained a long time ago. I do it for the love and the passion and all that other mushy stuff because it's real to me. You know what I mean? This is me speaking from the heart. I love this business and I still have a lot left to offer. And I'm very happy to be a trailblazer in New Japan because there's no one like me. And to have that opportunity to whoop up on people and do my thing and still spread positivity and block the hate movement. I'm very blessed with New Japan.
One of my favorite Anthony Green related type moments is when a screenshot of you in the virtual basement game kind of emerged. And people who were familiar with you were like, that's badass. That looks like him. And other people were like, man, they're going full on with like customization and all this stuff. Like, that's awesome. And then like people were like, oh, that's him. And it looks just like him. There's no face scans. There's nothing like that. It's completely like done by hand. It's got the jacket. It's got the fanny pack. It's got the sunglasses. It's got the headband. It's even got the hair. Please explain to me like how this came together for you.
So he randomly, his name's Ashton, a real cool guy, Virtual Basement, check it out on Twitter. He messaged me out of the blue, and I was just like, who is this guy? Why does he have this blue check mark on his Twitter account? And we just got back and forth talking. I don't think I'm better than anybody to not respond to someone on Twitter, unless you're like a real jerk. So I'm just back and forth with him, and he's telling me he saw me wrestle at Chaotic, and he was a big fan of mine, and he's reached out to these other people. He wants to produce this wrestling video game. I told him it was cool. We ended up in a text group at one point. It was me, him, and Enzo Amore, which I was like, Enzo's on board, so this must be pretty legit.
He's actively recruiting people. Like he went overseas and was like, the people on the tour were like, yeah, Enzo talked me into signing up for this game.
So finally, I'm like, all right, like let's meet up, man. You live in New Hampshire. It's only it's a state over. It was like an hour and a half drive for me, and I was already like around the area, so it was like a 30-minute drive. Then I just had to drive home, and I met his wife. I met his kid. Like he's a super cool guy. He showed me his office. He showed me his whiteboard with all the plans, and he said, "Listen, I'm not trying to make money off this game. This is a passion project for me. I've always loved professional wrestling. I basically got into making video games, like video game software, because I want to make a wrestling game. And I wanted to build a name for myself, which he did with a game called The Mean Greens, I believe. It's basically like, I would compare it to Halo, but you're a little green army man.
Oh,
like
yeah. As we film this, I think they're releasing it August 4th, which this interview may come out after that, but I'm pumped for that game. I straight up told them like, hey, give me information. I was asking them, give me a code for the game, please. Like, I want to play this game.
So he asked me if I was interested. I looked through the agreement and everything, and it doesn't stop me from doing anything else in my life or in wrestling or character wise. So he was so passionate about it. And I'm so passionate about professional wrestling. I felt for him, so I was all in on the idea. And he's continuing to reach out to new people. I'm seeing all like the sculpts he's making. He had this awesome song made for me. that I don't think's been heard at all yet, other than from him and I, and maybe some other people he sent it to. And I just thought it was very cool. And another thing, I was the first person actually to be announced for it, which is a pretty good feeling, especially when you have, Enzo Amore and you have Matt Seidel and whomever else is announced for it, that I was like the first guy he chose to put out there.
I thought that was a good move because, I mean, you're a colorful personality, and no disrespect to anybody that just goes out there and wears black tights, trunks, and all that stuff, but
yeah,
showing you showed a wide array. It was a visual appeal type of thing. Like, there was a lot of familiarity and a lot of like, okay, this looks cool. This character looks cool. Let's see what this is about. And they've just unraveled an insane roster of late. What other type of, I don't know if it's input, so to speak, but what type of feedback do you provide them, or do you have to send them images, anything like that?
So I sent him photos of my boots, all sides, front, back, sideways, top, bottom, everything they wanted. Same thing with my gear, my jacket, my logo. I had to do head scans, forward, sideways. By head scans, I mean took a
picture,
photo, yeah. So, and then did it with hair up and hair down,
cool.
So they could get what my shape is, which is round. I was told I have a very nicely shaped head, and good jawline.
It's a great compliment to have.
So, did all that, and then I just sent him some promo photos to get physique and my golden tan and how I like it to be presented. Other than that, that was really it. Yeah, that was really it for that stuff. When it comes to input, he asked me a few ideas for the names of the game, or he had the list on the whiteboard 4-sided ring, 6-sided ring, maybe an 8-sided cage to make it unique and be able to do an MMA style thing. And it reminded me a lot of Fire Pro in the sense where he wants you to be able to build your own ring however you want. So if you want a 4-sided ring with the New Japan style long pads, and you want your apron to be this color, but you want this to be that color, you can enter in your own logos. And his idea is to make the game DLC based, where there'll only be one game ever produced, and he's just going to continually make the game evolve, no pun intended. But always add stuff in to make it more unique and make it like no other wrestling video game.
I think that's the way to go. I mean, WWE is not putting out a game this year because their last effort fell short. UFC, 2.5 years between games because they go so DLC heavy. I think even Madden or NBA 2K, stuff like that, they could just do roster updates and the like. And I know that even the character, like the character list, is going to be largely based on your own drawing power because you get paid based on how often you're downloaded. Leon St. Giovanni told me a funny story about how he got his model sent to him, and he said the creator sent him a nude model of himself, and he was like, "How did you get my ass right?" Did you get a nude model of yourself?
I did not. I was fully geared up when I got mine.
I was like, I hope he's not doing this for everybody. I hope this was like a one-time thing.
I actually think, oddly enough, I think he sent me a nude one of somebody else.
Probably LSG.
It was not LSG.
Oh my God.
It was like action figure nude, though.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Of course.
Ken doll style.
Oh, amazing. That is amazing. Were you much of a wrestling video gamer?
Totally.
Or are you still?
Yeah. I mean, like, I will say, like, the wrestling games have kind of, like, I mean, the standard of them has kind of, like, dropped in recent years. But, I mean, like, I've always been, like a huge wrestling gaming dude. Like, from SVR 2007 onwards.
Oh,
yeah. 1,000%.
I've had some people say that they'll like, especially this generation of wrestlers, that they'll do moves almost the way they saw them in wrestling games. Like they'll, does that happen with you?
Yes. So like, it's funny that you say that literally you know, I'd say like half of my move set I got from like, so I pretty much every single year I'd go through all the moves in the WWE games and literally just like have my phone out and like go through each and every single one. And if I see one that I like and I can realistically do that I want to try, I'm like, hey, let me quickly record this so I can try it in training the next day. So I've literally got like a folder in my phone of like moves, and all of them pretty much are like motion capped things from the WWE games. So
that is fantastic. Like I see that so much more with this generation. Like I've had people tell me that when they do a tombstone, they'll like let go of people like how they saw in WCW Revenge. It'll be more of an abrupt thing. I think that's so cool. That shows the influence that video games have instead of the opposite.
It's such like and that thing is such like a cool like tool to use. Like it's literally perfect for aspiring wrestlers. So when like people at the school, I'll be like, you know, will sometimes be in training and they'll be like, I just don't know what moves to do. I'm like, have you ever played the WWE games? Do you have the WWE games? Because if you don't, there's YouTube videos. If you do, just go through and see which ones you like.
Especially when you were creating somebody, you could just repeat the move over and over again. Hit the square button, you can see how it's executed.
Slow it down and everything. Yeah.
I noticed your name is one of those added to the Virtual Basement Wrestling roster. They've announced the name, the Wrestling Code. How did that come about? How do you feel about that? And also, were you a gamer?
You know what's so funny is I played games all the time when I was little, but it's like the games that you wouldn't expect. Like I loved like the Britney Spears dance game on PS4 or PS2, and like Mary-Kate and Ashley and Frogger. But yeah, like so when they reached out to me, it's one of those things that it's like, this isn't real. This isn't real. But because it was pretty early on, and they were just saying like, hey, we're making this like wrestling video game. We'd love to make you someone on the roster. I'm like, well, this sounds really cool. Like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to be in a video game? And they've just been so great. Like just from the beginning, they're like, we want you to be along for the process to make sure like you're happy with everything too. And they have done that, and just the people that they've added to the roster since then, and just seeing some samples of like what the game is going to look like and what some of the characters are going to look like, and it's like this is going to be something. It's going to be really cool. So I mean, to imagine like being on a video game, like to me, I'm like, why me? Like that's really cool. That's a huge compliment, but me?
That has to feel like one of those I made it moments. Like when you got into wrestling, I'm sure there were times when things looked really tough, and then you're getting people hitting you up saying, "Hey, we want you in this video game."
Yeah, it definitely like helps your feelings and your vibe when like this year has been a lot of like feeling like you're in a slump and feeling like I don't know what's next. So it's like I was still feeling that way sometimes, like I don't know what's next. But that's also kind of what's exciting at the same time, because at the beginning of the year, I know one of my goals was to go work with AEW, but I didn't really know if it was going to happen or not. And especially with all that has happened recently in the world, it was like, well, this might just not be the year. And so blessings are still there, and there's still a lot of good to go around, and we can still finish the year strong. So that's just what I'm trying to focus on, is focus on all those good things.
Out in the lexicon that Virtual Basement provides nude models of their characters, and even the guys from Virtual Basement were like, oh my god. He was like, I probably shouldn't have sent those to people, but they thought it was very funny. What's the latest you've heard on Virtual Basement and that game?
Right now, I think they're just setting up the gaming system. They're developing all the 3D models for the wrestlers, because right now the roster is huge.
Oh yeah,
I didn't think it would be that big, but it looks like it's going to be a really big roster. I don't know. I should check in with them soon, and I know we're scheduling some mocap soon, so I'll be part of that. I'll get to do. I'm also going to be doing some mocap for some other wrestlers who can't make it.
So I mean, that's got to feel good too, that they trust in you to accurately emulate not just the way that you do things when you're in the ring, but the way that other people do things. That says a lot about your versatility.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. I've seen other guys do like the 2K mocap, and I'm like dying to try it.
Have you gotten
It's
any?
a lot of work.
Oh yeah, I mean those are long days too. Have you gotten any feedback from Ring of Honor about this game? Have they said anything to you about it? I know you're not under a deal right now, so they can't really say anything, but
No, but it's funny because when I remember back before I think I was in Nashville, and I had all these people asking me about it because I was one of the first guys announced for the game, and there was like a buzz in the locker room about it. And I think Virtual Basement was almost wanted me and PJ Black to kind of go around and send out feelers to people.
Yeah.
So we were going around telling people about the game, and it got a lot of people were interested. I don't know how many Ring of Honor guys are going to be involved. I don't know if they're allowed to.
Yeah.
But I know people are interested because, like, I mean, not going to be a Ring of Honor game coming out. So if there's an opportunity to get into this one, I think people are going to jump at it.
Were you big into the games when you were growing up, like wrestling games specifically?
I mean, I was big into like the SmackDown games.
Sure.
I missed the boat on like the N64 era. I've gone back and like played them. You know, I made sure to get No Mercy, and I've played those. But like, I grew up on the SmackDown games. SmackDown, Know Your Role, Just Bring It.
Oh yeah.
Like, the ones I grew up on.
That was a good era. Here Comes the Pain and all that, where you could jump out of helicopters and all kinds of crazy stuff. Like
that was like my Christmas treat. Like that's the one thing I wanted every Christmas, just to get my SmackDown game and play it.
Yeah, and to me, like one of the reasons Virtual Basement started the wrestling code was because there needed to be a shift, and we are seeing a major shift in wrestling gaming right now between them, between AEW, between even Retromania Arcade that's coming out. Like there's a lot of options that, quite frankly, we have not had in the past. Because I like you, I would look forward to this stuff every year.
Yeah, I mean, and the cool thing is it's opportunities for more guys to be seen on that level. Because before it was just WWE and that was it. Now you've got the chance to have independent stars show up in a video game. And that's a game changer. That's huge.